Hey, this is the Jade Tooth Project, and as promised, I'm back with a video on natural methods which safely detox our bodies from toxic metals and how to go about this in the best way. So, this info is derived from my personal experience engaging with herbal chelation and detox, and paired with tons, hundreds of hours of research and self-experimentation and refinement of my methods and protocols. So this video is for harm reduction purposes only. I'm not a licensed medical practitioner, and nothing said in this video is intended as medical advice. This video is for educational purposes, and I am not liable for any harm resulting from the application of this information. Chelation can be very dangerous for people with metal toxicity, and it can make symptoms worse. So please always do your own research and always listen to your own body if engaging in this kind of stuff. So let me start with the basics. What is chelation and who needs it? So chelation in the chemical sense occurs when a type of molecule called a ligand forms a bond with a metal ion and creates a coordination complex, it's called, which is the combination of the chelator and the metal ion. And this coordination complex is far less toxic in the body than just free metal ions floating around, as long as it's a strong bond. And this is the key distinction in this whole realm. If it's a weak bond between the chelator and the metal ion, then basically what can happen is the metal ion can get pulled out of wherever it was stored in the body. It can get mobilized and it can get redistributed. It can move somewhere else in the body and then released. The bond can break and the metal ion can become free again and start causing symptoms of toxicity or damage in the form of oxidative stress or other forms. Metals are very, very destructive for the body, most of them. Some of them are necessary nutrients, and they say the dose makes the poison, and that's generally true. But it's not true for every metal. There are certain metals that just shouldn't be in the body, and there's no therapeutic or medicinal dose, no matter how homeopathic or microscopic the dose. So in a practical sense, chelation is the process of ingesting foods and herbs which have chelating phytochemicals which pull metals from our cells, tissues, and organs. And on top of this, our bodies are also constantly producing their own chelating compounds, which continuously are clearing metals from our systems. Therefore, we're always chelating, whether we like it or not. But by modifying our diets, it's possible to take control of this process and make it safer and more effective. So this whole video is about making the process of chelation more conscious and natural and beneficial toward our systems. So now I want to get into what binders are versus chelators. There's a class of compounds called detox binders, and these are basically a type of chelator, which has chelating actions that stay localized to the intestinal tract or already circulating metals in the bloodstream, for example, but doesn't go into the tissues and cells and pull out stored metals. So when I say chelators, I'm generally referring to aggressive compounds which pull metals from wherever they may be stored in the body. But I distinguish that from detox binders, which are a type of chelator, but they just act in the gut. They don't generally cross the intestinal barrier. And this makes them a lot safer, and they tend to eliminate metals which have already been pulled out of the body. They make sure they don't get reabsorbed by the organs, by the intestinal tract, and it helps to flush and cleanse our bodies of metals. So this is really helpful in chelation. If someone is taking a chelator, they always need to be taking a detox binder in conjunction with this to prevent the redistribution and the reabsorption of metals. So I'll get into examples later of what these detox binders are and what these chelators are. But first I want to cover what type of person may want to consider chelation versus who should absolutely not consider chelation. So chelation is for anyone who has been exposed to toxic or heavy metals in their life, but does not have any active internal exposure. This is really important and super key to this whole process, to doing it safely. So any active internal exposure, what I mean by that is metal fillings, tattoos, as in metal dental fillings like amalgam fillings, tattoos, metal dental implants, or any type of implant in the body, such as root canals or pacemakers or stents. And this extends itself to zirconia as a material, of course titanium, and any other metal they may implant in people in surgical procedures. And then I also consider metal piercings to be a source of active internal exposure, because they're in such close contact with internal tissue, and I think chelating with metal piercings could also cause some redistribution risks. So here's how I personally think mitigating the effects of implanted metals works. So, like I said, if you have any of these sources of internal exposure, active internal exposure of metals, then it's good to avoid what I consider chelators, these aggressive metal pulling compounds, because it could take the metal from those internal sources and put it somewhere else in the body. That's the gist of it. But there are still things that can be done for people who have these things so that they can protect their bodies and find better health. First of all, addressing the sources of exposure is really getting to the root cause. So if it's a cosmetic thing, then I would consider removal. If it's a necessary thing, but there's a non-metallic alternative, for example, with piercings, if there are other materials such as silicone or like platinum silicone, for example, or wood or gemstones or something like that, which could be used, or bone, which could be used instead. Those are much safer than metal. And there are certain types of metal which are definitely safer than others. But I would recommend avoiding metal. But if it's a necessary medical implant, then I would explore if there are other materials which could be used for the same purpose and are safer. With tattoos, it's a whole fiasco. the removal of tattoos with lasers is very dangerous. It pushes the metals further into the lymphatic system and bloodstream, and can incinerate the metals and cause them to become more toxic. The inks, the different compounds in the inks can actually become more harmful through laser removal. So if you do go the route of tattoo removal, especially for color inks, those are the worst offenders, but even black inks can have metals in them. There's no regulation on the tattoo ink industry right now, and it's really horrific. But if you do go that route, then definitely the safest route to go and the most effective for actually removing the metals from your body and doing it safely is extraction with a scalpel. And it's very important to ensure that it's cold steel, that's a metal scalpel and not an electric scalpel. Yeah, had to learn that the hard way. So if it's a necessary implant, if it's something that there's no metal alternative to, and you can't just have it removed, it's keeping you alive or whatever it may be, or keeping bones in place or whatever, keeping your heart pumping, then of course you need to keep it. If there's no alternatives, if there's no safer alternatives and it's keeping you alive, like you can't, you're kind of you're stuck. But it's not hopeless. So that's where binders come in to save the day. There's always something we can do to improve the quality of our lives and protect from these toxins. So the best natural binder, the best binder in general that exists, seems to be high pectin fruits, specifically apples, the pectin from apples, but also pectin from citrus peels and seeds, sugar beet roots or pulp from the byproduct of juicing sugar beets, the calyxes of hibiscus. All of these are really great sources of pectin, and the pectin stays isolated to the gut. It soaks up all sorts of different heavy metals from the intestinal tract and carries them out of the body, binds really strongly. Here's a caveat: these foods must be fermented with apple cider vinegar, the raw, unfiltered, with the mother kind, to optimize the binding compounds. So the exception is the inner rind of durian. The soft inner flesh is naturally low methoxyl. So these other sources of pectin, they have high methoxyl pectin, and the fermentation process converts them to low methoxyl pectin. But the inner rind of durian doesn't need fermentation, although it would benefit also from being fermented. So like I said, apple pectin is one of the best all-around pectins for binding, and it's widely available. Apples are everywhere. So I wanted to give a recipe for fermenting apples, and as a nice byproduct, this creates vinegar. So get organic apples, wash them, chop them, and include all parts of the apple, the skin and core and everything. For a big jar with a wide mouth, you'd need about 4 to 6 apples, 4 to 6 cups of water, 2 to 4 tablespoons of raw honey, and an optional starter of 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. So throw all that stuff in a jar together, add a fermentation weight, and cover with a cheesecloth and let it sit in a warm, dark place for a month, stirring occasionally with a non-metal utensil. After this, you can strain off the vinegar and use it, and then consume the apples, or you can just blend it all up and consume it all together. It's super, super healthy. And just eating this stuff multiple times a day I think, they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away, and really I think it's a fermented apple a day keeps the doctor away. So charcoal, activated charcoal, specifically from organic untreated bamboo washed with just purified water. This is a good binder. This is a good detox binder. But for metals, not so much. It does work for certain metals, but it has a high affinity for pharmaceuticals, mycotoxins, and pesticides more than it does for metals. But it still is helpful, I think, for metals, and maybe it may bind different metals than pectin would. So, the science isn't fully there on this stuff, but combining charcoal with the fermented apple after it's been fermented, I think could create a really nice synergy. Wouldn't interfere at all with the binding capabilities, and could be a good all-around binder. So the benefit of bamboo charcoal too is that it's really high in silica. It has these microporous or nanosilica pores, whatever it is, and these actually increase the metal binding capacity of the charcoal. And it's good to pair charcoal too with algae. But algae is a chelator, and so for people who are just looking to bind, I only say that because charcoal can absorb certain nutrients and lower cholesterol. I think it's potassium that it can absorb, but generally I don't think it's going to cause a huge issue, especially if it's not taken around mealtime. I think that's probably a pretty minimal effect, so it's nothing really to be scared of. So another class of binders that people often take are clay binders, and this includes zeolite and calcium bentonite clay, and really any other clay. So I'm a bit on the fence about these. These do bind to metals very strongly, stronger than charcoal, and they purportedly do not release the metals that they contain into the body, but they do contain some very toxic metals in these clays. But some people have really good reports with using these things. So I think this is really just where body awareness comes in, just seeing how it works for you and keeping track. But I personally don't want to put anything into my body which contains really toxic metals. Shilajit is also included in this. So here's my diet for a safe detox without redistribution for someone who has active internal exposure of metals. This includes foods and herbs that either protect cells or organs from metals, bolsters our endogenous detox pathways, or chelates with strong bonds. So this specifically excludes things that chelate with weak bonds to prevent redistribution. Now I'm just going to give a long list of all the foods that fit into this category and herbs. So Brazil nuts, alliums such as garlic, onions, chives, leeks, that sort of thing, that family of plants. Moringa oil, Japanese pepper, Chinese rhubarb, which must be boiled and strained because of oxalate content. Yellow dock, red clover, ginkgo, coffee, coconut water, all sorts of different adaptogens. Ginger, white and oolong tea, grapes, java plum, wild lettuce, wild custard apple, green papaya, wheat germ oil, sprouted sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, almonds, stone fruit of all sort. The leaves, actually, specifically of the stone fruit, are some of the highest zinc sources out there. That's why I include this. Wheat, corn, oats, and basically all fruits, beans, grains, and veggies, because of their fiber content, are really great. And vitamin C is awesome too, so high vitamin C fruits. Dulse, potatoes, radishes, beets, and carrots. And I include dulse because it binds very strongly, although it is an algae, and most algae I do not keep in this category. And in addition to this, saunas and mud baths can be really helpful for getting the toxins out straight through the skin. Alright, so here's a gray area. Here are the things that could be helpful, but I'm on the fence about and I would generally avoid. Because they have some positives and some negatives. So, sea veggies, algae, seaweeds, spirulina, and chlorella, they may have weak bonds and redistribution potential. Grapefruit and St. John's wort, these modulate liver enzymes, and this is iffy territory, particularly with when pharmaceuticals are involved, but even if they're not, just the way that our bodies create liver enzymes, it generally needs to be regulated, and it's kind of unpredictable with these things how they may modulate these enzymes. So I shy away from those. Any berberine containing foods, bitter melon, pineapple, and golden seal. These are strong detoxifiers and could inch into the category of chelators. So magnesium, any high magnesium foods such as wheat bran, amaranth, spinach, pumpkin seeds, chocolate, and mangosteen. Also Swiss chard and buckwheat are really high in magnesium. And what these do is they allow the release of metals from tissues. They basically relax tissues, which makes it easier for metals to escape, stored metals. So this can be helpful, but really it's only to be used with binders. That's basically chelation. So additionally, barley grass, wheatgrass, wild blueberries, and turmeric are all chelating, but they also have really protective properties against metal toxicity. So that's why I put them in this gray area category. And then psychedelics I put in the gray area category, like ayahuasca, iboga, magic mushrooms, cactus medicines, such as peyote or San Pedro, and venom therapies from frogs, snakes, or bees, or anything else you can get venom from. All of these, I just don't know really how much it's been studied. These things could have strong chelators in them, and I honestly haven't dove into this very deeply at all, but there could be science on this that I don't know about, but generally these are such strong, powerful, cleansing medicines that it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of them pulled metals from deep in our bones and tissues, and honestly sometimes I think people have negative experiences because they have internal sources of metal exposure, probably from medical things. And they may have massive redistribution events when they go into these experiences. So they think they're healing themselves when actually they could be doing both healing and harming themselves at the same time. So it's really on a case-by-case basis, and just gotta do your own research. These are also, life-saving and paradigm-shifting, culture transformative substances. So it's a hard one. All right, and the last thing on the gray list is high thiol foods. Thiols are sulfur compounds, and sulfur can be chelating, and people who have certain forms of metal toxicity, especially mercury toxicity, can have real high sensitivity to thiols. And you can go find lists for yourself of high thiol and low thiol foods. Andy Cutler's book on mercury detox, his chelation book, has nice charts on high and low thiol foods. Not everyone with metal toxicity is going to have thiol sensitivity, but there's just something to be aware of. So now I'm going to get into chelation. First, I need to make some notes about the safety steps and precautions that should be taken. Chelation, again, is only for people who have external exposure or non-active exposure, so no internal sources of toxicity, or, to be more specific, not like non-active exposure. So what I mean by that is, for example, if you had vaccines in the past, then I don't consider that active exposure, because it's something that can be detoxed and should be detoxed. It's not going to give a continuous stream of new metal into the body, whereas, for example, an amalgam filling or a pacemaker would provide a endless stream of new metal into the body that if someone were to take chelators, then it would just keep pulling and pulling from that source. I don't consider vaccines to be the same case. I think it's actually really, if you've only had vaccines and that's your only source of metal exposure, then it could be really healthy to engage in chelation. So doing a body scan just before even stepping into this world, just thinking about your prior medical history, everything that's been done to you. People can forget that they've even been given things, that they have certain implants in their bodies. So just head to toe. Just try to remember anything that's been done, and see if there's anything in your body that's a foreign metal object. And this includes tattoos, again. If you do engage in chelation, always pair chelators with binders. There's no instance in which it's good to take a weekly binding chelator without a binder, because, and also without a lymphatic cleanser or a lymphatic stimulant, because, and in addition to that, I might as well add like a bloodstream, like something that moves the blood, because what's happening, like when we pull metals out of our tissues and our cells and our organs is they get moved into either the bloodstream or the lymphatic system, and then they have to make their way into the liver, the kidneys, or whatever it may be, different detox organs, elimination organs, and eventually they find their way into our digestive tract. Usually the liver dumps into the large intestine, and so that's how metals will flow out of the body, and then they have to be excreted from the large intestine too, which is why binders are so necessary. But it's really important that if metals are being pulled out of any organ in your body, that you're aware of where that's going and how it's being taken out of that elimination system. So it can't just stay flowing in the bloodstream or the lymphatic system, because then it could, if it's a weak bond, if the chelator makes a weak bond, it can carry that through those systems to other parts of the body, to other organs, even to the brain, and drop it there. And this is a reason why it's also really important to take certain herbs which protect our various organs from the toxic effects of these metals. And those are generally the things that I listed in the diet the diet lists for safe detox without redistribution. A lot of those things really can help protect various organs. I know that moringa oil, Chinese rhubarb, the Japanese pepper, the Brazil nuts, the yellow dock, the ginkgo, the red clover, the ginger, the grapes, the wild lettuce, the wild custard apple, all of these are protective for various organs. So it's just about being intentional. Not just taking these things to take them, but knowing what they're doing and where the metals are going, and having a plan for that, and doing it in a specific order with specific timing, so that the metals actually flow out of our systems. And that brings me to the point of the fact that binders should be taken before, during, and after chelators. So binders should already be in the intestines, like deep into the digestive tract, before chelators are taken. And binders should also be taken while chelators are being taken. And then even after chelators are stopped, it's a good idea to keep flushing with binders. So always, always, always bind. The more binding, the better. Keeping a chelation diary is also really a useful tool. This just helps to keep track of what you took and when, and how it affected you. It's like a what do people do when they calorie count? It's like a calorie counting, like a diet journal on crack. It's like yeah. It's really important in these chelation diaries to note everything um, what chelators were taken, what binders were taken, what times they were taken, and how you're feeling through all of it. It's really all about how you feel. And it's a lot easier to keep track of this stuff and see the correlations and causations if it's an incremental process, if one thing is introduced, one food is or herb is introduced at a time, so that the variables are isolated in true scientific form. It's hard to be perfect, as we're trying to heal from these sort of toxicities. And just with life, just with foods and diet and trying to obtain certain things and manage symptoms, it can be really hard to isolate variables. But if at all you can, it's a good practice. It's okay to work with one herb at a time. It's okay to work with one food at a time for a week or two, and or even longer, and just see what happens, see how it interacts with your system. Hydration is also really important, specifically filtered water. It's really important during the chelation process just to keep everything flowing. Magnesium, like I said, relaxes the muscles and helps to release metals from the tissues. So if you are chelating, this can be a tool. It makes it easier to chelate and faster. Saunas, mud baths, and exercise are all great ways during chelation to just reduce the burden on the internal organs, because it pulls toxins directly out through the skin. And just in general, if you're chelating, don't be eating junk food. Don't be eating fast food, fake stuff with vitamins in it, or taking drugs or supplements or anything like that. Don't be smoking cigarettes or drinking soda. Yeah, I'm sure I sound like your mom right now, but seriously, it's important. That stuff can interfere with this process, and it's just not good for your system. If you're trying to heal, then cut that shit out. So here's the phytochemicals that chelate. DADS and DADT from alliums, like I mentioned, the whole family of shallots, chives, onions, garlic, leeks, that sort of stuff. That all has allicin and these sulfur compounds, which are very strong chelators. Iodine. Iodine is a lot of times added into salt. Just please, for the love of God, don't eat that. Fulvic acid, humic acid, these are both chelators. A note on iodine: there is natural sources of iodine too. That's where the fish and the algae and sea vegetables come in. And they're also adding like fluoride to salt, and they use explosives to mine it, that sort of thing. Sea salt also has all sorts of microplastics and toxins from the sea. So yeah, I'll talk more about salt in a little bit. But chlorophyll is another chelator that tends to make weak bonds. Selenium and sulfur both are chelating elements, and there are probably others that I'm missing, but these are the main ones, and this list doesn't include binders. So I mean, I guess some of these, like I said, the alliums and the selenium, they could be considered binders and rather safe for people with active exposure. But now I'm going to give the chelating foods and herbs that that are strong, that that will pull metals from deep in our tissues, and should not be probably taken by anyone with active exposure. This includes fish and seafood, salt. So I think the best source of salt is scalar salt, and hand mined scalar salt at that is the best. Still can contain some metals and chelating elements, but it's the cleanest. Way better than sea salt, better than Himalayan salt. I mean, if it's hand mined Himalayan salt, that's a different thing, but yeah, look into scalar salt. And dandelion, cilantro, meats, especially organs, these are all chelators. Brahmi, guarana, and the Morris tree, and also grasses and algae are chelators. Burdock and Gokshura, which is also called Tribulus terrestris. Miso and astragalus, these are also chelators. Now I just want to close by talking about plant intelligence. So say no to drugs. They taught us this in DARE. It's generally just good advice. Stay away from anything that's synthesized and extracted and isolated by chemical industrial means. Chemical chelators do exist and they are used. I talked about this in my video, Amalgam, a Horrific Invention. This is a bad idea generally because they pull hard. They pull metals hard. And they pull them indiscriminately and they redistribute. And there are side effects to these chemical chelators. So go check out my other video if you want to know about more. Herbs and foods are gentle, and that list I just mentioned of chelators are the hardest ones, but generally herbs and foods are gentle chelators compared to the chemical ones, which is needed because metals are no joke. Metal toxicity is no laughing matter. It can kill people. So these herbs and foods, they protect our organs and cells, and they're gentler. They pull selectively. So this is why I've gone this route. Now, the other benefit of herbs and foods is that you can go on your own schedule with them. They're more pleasant and enjoyable than these ridiculous drug routines, and they can be incorporated into the diet. This is really this is a blessing from nature. It's almost like it's how we were supposed to do it. So if you want to support this channel, yeah, I'm looking for a team. That's why I created this channel. I'm trying to invent and design and prototype different dental restorations that are non-toxic for people, that don't contain metals, that don't give people metal toxicity, so they don't even have to deal with this kind of shit in the first place. Looking for a team to help design bioplastic clear aligners and nephrite fillings and non-toxic mineral cement fillings and bridges to start with. So for this, I'm looking for a team of maybe dental CAD designer, dental technician, or prosthetician, biomaterials or bioplastic experts, people with experience in the patent industry for defensive publication, and really just anyone who's a passionate rebel, engineer, or inventor, anyone who cares about this and wants to help. I am happy to engage in digital and international collaboration, maybe doing some Zoom calls in the future, and just talking about this stuff and gaining some momentum to actually turn into reality. So please like this video, comment down below with any questions, comments, concerns, or words of general support. Very appreciated. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss future videos, and please share these videos with any of your friends or family, or dentist friends, or anyone who you may think would benefit from this information. And yeah, please go watch my other videos to gain some more context, and feel free to reach out to me at my email through this channel's description. And yeah, stay tuned for more. Thank you for your time.